Your life as a hummingbird starts in a nest so small it could fit in a teaspoon, hidden high in the branches where most predators can't reach. Your mother built this architectural marvel using spider silk, moss, and plant fibers, weaving it together with the precision of a master craftsman. It's not just a nest, it's a fortress designed to keep you alive in a world that's constantly trying to kill you. Inside this tiny sanctuary, you begin as nothing more than a white speck, smaller than a jelly bean. Your mother sits on you for 13 days straight, barely leaving except to grate quick meals. She rotates every few minutes, making sure you're heated evenly, like some kind of biological rotisserie. When you finally crack through your shell, you're basically a nightmare creature. You're blind, naked, and so small that a strong breeze could kill you. Your skin is translucent, your eyes are sealed shut, and you look more like a tiny alien than a bird. You can't regulate your own body temperature, you can't move properly, and you definitely can't fly. You're essentially a helpless blob with a beak, completely dependent on your mother for everything. Your first meal arrives within hours. Your mother hovers above you, her beak opening to reveal a mixture of nectar and tiny insects that she's pre-chewed into a protein-rich soup. She sticks her beak deep into your throat and pumps this mixture directly into your stomach. It's not exactly appetizing, but it's liquid gold for a growing hummingbird. You don't have a choice anyway. You're too weak to resist, even if you wanted to. The feeding schedule is relentless. Your mother visits every 20 minutes, sometimes more often, stuffing you with this nutritious slurry. She's basically a flying food delivery service, except if she stops working, you die. Each feeding session lasts only a few seconds, but it's enough to keep you growing at an incredible rate. You're doubling in size every few days, your tiny body working overtime to transform from a helpless hatchling into something that might actually survive. Your sibling is going through the same process right next to you. The nest is cramped, and you're both competing for the same limited space and food. Sometimes you accidentally step on each other. Sometimes you fight over who gets fed first. There's no concept of sharing when survival is on the line. Your mother doesn't play favorites. She feeds whoever begs the loudest and opens their beak the widest. After about a week, your eyes finally open and the world suddenly makes sense. You can see your mother's iridescent feathers catching the light. You can see the walls of your nest, and you can see just how high up you are. The ground looks impossibly far away, and you instinctively know that falling means certain death. Your nest might be small, but it's the only safe place in a world full of predators. Your feathers start coming in around day 10, tiny pin feathers that will eventually become your flight equipment. At first, they look like small spikes poking through your skin, but gradually they unfurl into proper feathers. Your mother continues her feeding routine, but now you're getting more solid food mixed in with the nectar. Small spiders, gnats, and other protein sources that will fuel your incredible metabolism. By the second week, you're starting to look like an actual hummingbird. Your feathers are developing their colors. Your beak is getting longer and more specialized, and your wings are beginning to take shape. You can hold your head up properly, and you're starting to show interest in the world beyond the nest. Your mother still brings all your food, but now you're alert enough to watch her technique, learning by observation how a hummingbird is supposed to behave. The nest is getting crowded. What seemed spacious when you were the size of a grape now feels like a cramped prison. You and your sibling are constantly bumping into each other, and sometimes one of you gets pushed dangerously close to the edge. Your mother reinforces the walls regularly, adding new material to keep the structure sound, but she can't make it bigger. Physics and engineering have their limits, even for hummingbirds. Your appetite is becoming legendary. You're eating almost constantly, consuming more than your body weight in food every single day. Your mother is working herself to exhaustion, making hundreds of trips to find enough nectar and insects to keep you both alive. She's lost weight. Her feathers are looking ragged, and she's clearly running on fumes. But she doesn't stop, because stopping means her children die. Around day 15, something changes. Your mother starts spending less time in the nest, and when she does visit, she seems more agitated, more urgent. She's not just feeding you anymore, she's trying to teach you. She hovers in front of the nest, demonstrating wing movements, showing you how to extend your beak, making calls that you instinctively try to copy. You don't understand what's happening, but you can feel the tension building. Your wing muscles are getting stronger every day. You find yourself flapping involuntarily, your body preparing for something you don't fully comprehend yet. The movements are clumsy and uncoordinated, but they're movements nonetheless. Your mother watches these attempts with what looks like approval, encouraging you with soft chirps and calls. Then one morning, everything changes. Your mother arrives with food, but instead of feeding you immediately, she hovers just outside the nest, holding the food just out of reach. You stretch toward her, begging for your meal, but she backs away slightly. You stretch further, your body extending beyond the safety of the nest walls for the first time. Your feet lose contact with the familiar surface, and suddenly you're balancing on the edge of your world. Your mother continues to back away, the food still tantalizingly close, but not close enough. You stretch further, your wings instinctively spreading for balance. The wind catches your feathers, and you feel the first hint of what flight might be like. Your mother chirps encouragement, but she doesn't come closer. This is your moment of truth, your graduation from helpless chick to independent hummingbird. The fear is overwhelming. Every instinct screams at you to retreat to the safety of the nest, but your hunger is stronger than your fear. You lean forward, your wings beating frantically, and then it happens. You leave the nest for the first time, suspended in midair by nothing but your own wing power. You're flying, sort of. Your first flight lasts about 3 seconds before you crash into a nearby branch. Flying is harder than it looks, and you definitely don't have the hang of it yet. Your mother hovers nearby, ready to help if you get into serious trouble, but she's not going to make this easy for you. You pick yourself up, spread your wings, and try again. The second attempt is better. You manage to stay airborne for almost 10 seconds before another crash landing. Your wings are getting the rhythm, the rapid beating that will eventually become as natural as breathing. Your mother finally rewards your effort with food, but only after you've proven you can at least get off the ground under your own power. Over the next few days, your flying skills improve dramatically. You learn to hover, to move forward and backward, to navigate between branches without crashing. Your mother is still bringing food, but now you have to work for it, meeting her in midair or following her to feeding locations. The nest is becoming less important, more of a place to rest than a permanent home. As the days pass, your new body starts to feel different again. Your flight muscles are developing, growing stronger with each passing hour. The tiny pin feathers that first sprouted from your skin begin to unfurl, revealing the iridescent colors that will define you for the rest of your life. Green and red shimmer across your throat, while your back displays deep emerald hues that catch the light in ways that seem almost magical. But beauty means nothing if you can't survive. Your mother still brings you food, but now it's different. She's not just dropping regurgitated nectar into your mouth anymore. Instead, She hovers nearby, encouraging you to stretch your neck further, to work harder for each meal. It's frustrating at first because your body wants the easy feeding you've grown accustomed to, but she's preparing you for something much more demanding. The nest feels smaller now. What once seemed spacious has become cramped, and every movement requires careful coordination to avoid tumbling out. Your sibling, if you have one, is going through the same transformation. There's an unspoken tension in the air, a restlessness that grows stronger each day. Your instincts are telling you something important is about to happen, but you don't understand what. Then one morning, everything changes. Your mother arrives with food, but instead of feeding you directly, she hovers just outside the nest. She's close enough that you can see the nectar glistening on her beak, but far enough that you can't reach it from your usual position. You stretch your neck as far as possible, but it's not enough. She moves back even further, and suddenly you realize what she's doing. This is your first real test. Your wings, which have been nothing more than awkward appendages flapping uselessly at your sides, suddenly feel different, heavier, more substantial. The muscles that have been developing are ready, and your body knows it, even if your mind doesn't. You lean forward, extending your wings for balance, and for the first time in your life, you feel the air catch beneath them. The sensation is incredible and terrifying. Your feet leave the familiar safety of the nest edge, and for a split second, you're suspended in midair. It's not graceful, and it's definitely not controlled, but you're flying, sort of. The landing is rough, more of a controlled crash onto a nearby branch, but you made it. Your mother rewards you immediately, finally allowing you to feed, but something has fundamentally changed. Over the next few days, these short flights become longer and more confident. Your mother leads you from branch to branch, always staying just far enough ahead to force you to fly, but close enough to help if you get into trouble. She's teaching you the basics of hummingbird navigation, how to read the air currents, how to judge distances, and most importantly, how to hover. Hovering is the most challenging skill you'll ever learn. It requires perfect coordination between your wings, which beat at an impossible 80 beats per second, and your body position. Too far forward and you'll tumble head first. Too far back and you'll flip over completely. The sweet spot is incredibly narrow, and finding it takes endless practice. Your first attempts are disasters. You wobble uncontrollably, your wings beating frantically as you try to maintain position, but you keep drifting in directions you never intended to go. But gradually, something clicks. Your wing beats become more synchronized, your body position more stable. You discover that hovering isn't about fighting the air, it's about working with it. Your wings don't just beat up and down, they rotate and twist in a figure-8 pattern that creates lift on both the upstroke and downstroke. It's the most complex flight mechanism in the animal kingdom, and somehow your tiny brain is mastering it. The first time you successfully hover for more than a few seconds, your mother does something unexpected. She hovers right beside you, matching your position perfectly, and for a moment, you fly together. It's a brief connection, but it feels like approval, like she's telling you that you're ready for the next challenge. That challenge comes sooner than you expect. Following your mother on one of your practice flights, you arrive at something you've never seen before. It's a cluster of red, trumpet-shaped flowers, and the air around them is thick with the sweetest scent you've ever encountered. Your mother approaches one of the flowers, extends her long beak deep into its center, and begins to drink. This is your first introduction to nectar, the fuel that will power your entire adult life. She moves aside, and it's your turn. The flower seems enormous, compared to your tiny body, and getting your beak positioned correctly takes several attempts. But when you finally manage to extend your tongue and taste that first drop of nectar, it's like discovering fire. The sugar content is incredible, far more concentrated than anything you've ever tasted, and you can feel the energy flooding through your system almost immediately. But drinking nectar is harder than it looks. Your tongue, which is forked and covered in tiny hairs, needs to work like a pump, drawing the liquid up and into your mouth. It's a skill that requires practice, and your first attempts are messy and inefficient. You spill more than you drink, and your mother has to show you repeatedly how to position your body, how to time your tongue movements, and how to withdraw cleanly without disturbing the flower. As you're learning to feed, something else becomes apparent. You're not alone at these flowers. Other hummingbirds are here too, and they're not all friendly. An adult male arrives, his throat flashing brilliant red as he approaches the flower cluster. He's twice your size, and his movements are aggressive and territorial. He doesn't attack you directly, but his presence is intimidating. Your mother positions herself between you and the larger bird, her own posture becoming defensive. This is your first lesson in hummingbird politics. These flowers aren't just food sources, they're valuable real estate. The best nectar sources are fiercely defended by the strongest birds, and access is earned through a combination of speed, aggression, and timing. As a young bird, you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, and you'll need to be smart about when and where you feed. The male eventually moves on, but not before making his point clear. You watch your mother's reaction carefully, noting how she waited for him to finish before allowing you to approach again. She's teaching you patience, showing you that sometimes survival means knowing when to wait your turn rather than fighting battles you can't win. Your feeding skills improve rapidly over the following days. You learn to identify the best flowers, the ones with the highest nectar content and the easiest access. You discover that different flowers bloom at different times of day, and that timing your visits correctly can mean the difference between a full meal and going hungry. Most importantly, you learn to read the behavior of other hummingbirds, understanding when it's safe to feed and when it's better to wait. But nectar isn't your only food source. Your mother also teaches you to hunt for insects, tiny gnats, and spiders that provide the protein essential for your growth. This requires completely different skills. Instead of the hovering precision needed for flower feeding, insect hunting demands quick, darting movements and split-second timing. You learn to snatch flies out of midair, to pluck spiders from their webs, and to find the tiny insects that hide on the undersides of leaves. The combination of high-energy nectar and protein-rich insects fuels your continued growth. Your flight becomes stronger and more confident with each passing day. You can now keep up with your mother on longer flights, following her as she shows you the boundaries of safe territory and the locations of the best feeding spots. Your world is expanding rapidly, but with that expansion comes new dangers. One afternoon, while practicing your hovering technique near a patch of flowers, a shadow passes overhead. Your mother's reaction is immediate and terrifying. She dives toward you, her body slamming into yours and knocking you sideways into the cover of nearby leaves. Above you, a hawk circles, its keen eyes searching for movement. You freeze, every instinct screaming at you to stay absolutely still. The hawk makes several passes, but eventually moves on. Your mother emerges from cover slowly, cautiously, and you understand that this is how quickly your life can change. The sky that seemed so welcoming moments before is now revealed as a dangerous place, filled with predators that see you as nothing more than a quick meal. This encounter marks another transition in your education. Your mother begins teaching you about threats, how to recognize the silhouettes of dangerous birds, how to use cover effectively, and most importantly, how to escape. Your small size, which makes you vulnerable, also makes you incredibly maneuverable. You can change direction instantly, dive into dense vegetation, and hide in spaces too small for larger predators to follow. But perhaps the most important lesson she teaches you is about energy management. Your high speed lifestyle requires constant refueling, and running out of energy in the wrong place at the wrong time can be fatal. You learn to recognize the signs of declining blood sugar, the subtle changes in your flight performance that indicate you need to feed soon. You discover that your body can only store enough energy for a few hours of normal activity, and that overnight fasting pushes you to the very edge of survival. These lessons become increasingly important as your mother's behavior begins to change. She's no longer always there when you need her. Sometimes you arrive at a feeding spot to find her gone, forcing you to make decisions on your own. Other times, she'll start a journey and then veer off in a different direction, leaving you to find your own way home. At first, this feels like abandonment, but gradually you realize it's preparation. Your migration to independence didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process that started with longer flights away from your mother's watchful eye. At first, you stayed within familiar territory, always returning to the same perch where she waited. But as your wings grew stronger and your confidence soared, those flights stretched further. You discovered new feeding grounds, tested your speed against other hummingbirds, and learned to navigate by landmarks instead of following her lead. The world opened up in ways you never imagined. Flowers weren't just sources of nectar anymore. They were puzzles to solve. Oh, which ones held the richest rewards? Which ones were already claimed by bigger, more aggressive birds? You learned to read the subtle signs, the way a flower's petals drooped when it was empty, the shimmer of fresh nectar in the morning light. Your tongue, that incredible tool you'd been born with, could reach deep into trumpet-shaped blossoms that other birds couldn't access. But flowers weren't your only food source. Insects became a crucial part of your diet, providing the protein you needed to maintain your incredible metabolism. You perfected the art of hawking, catching gnats and mosquitoes mid-flight with precision that would make a fighter pilot jealous. Sometimes you'd hover near spider webs, plucking trapped insects before the spider could claim them. It was a risky business. One wrong move, and you'd become entangled yourself. Your first real territorial dispute came sooner than expected. You were feeding at a particularly rich patch of bee balm when another hummingbird arrived. This wasn't your mother's gentle guidance or a sibling's playful competition. This was serious. The intruder was an adult male, his throat blazing red in the sunlight, and he had no intention of sharing. He dove at you with a speed that took your breath away, his wings creating a whirring sound that seemed to cut through the air itself. You tried to hold your ground, but inexperience showed. He was faster, more aggressive, and he knew exactly how to use his energy efficiently. You found yourself driven away from the best feeding spots, forced to search for flowers that were less contested. It was a harsh lesson in the economics of survival. Energy was everything, and wasting it on fights you couldn't win was a luxury you couldn't afford. The social dynamics of hummingbird life became clearer as you matured. There was a hierarchy, invisible but absolute. Older birds, particularly males, dominated the prime feeding territories. Females with chicks to feed were given grudging respect, but only because they fought with desperate ferocity. Young birds like you existed on the margins, taking what you could get and staying out of the way of your betters. You learned to be strategic about your feeding times. Early morning and late evening were often less competitive, as many birds were still roosting or preparing for the night. You discovered that rainy days, while challenging, sometimes offered opportunities. Other birds would seek shelter while you braved the drops, your waterproof feathers protecting you as you fed from rain-soaked flowers. The changing seasons brought new challenges. As summer progressed, some of your favorite flowers began to fade. You had to expand your territory, searching for new sources of nectar. This meant venturing into unfamiliar areas, risking encounters with predators you didn't know how to avoid. You learned to recognize the hunting patterns of different threats. Cats were terrestrial dangers, lurking near ground-level feeders. Hawks were aerial predators, striking from above with deadly precision. Your first encounter with a praying mantis nearly ended your story before it truly began. You'd been feeding regularly at a trumpet vine, growing comfortable with its familiar blooms. The mantis had positioned itself perfectly, its green body invisible among the leaves. You approached as usual, focused on the nectar, when those lightning-fast forelegs nearly closed around your head. Your reflexes saved you, but barely. The incident taught you to vary your approach patterns, to always scan for danger before committing to a feeding position. Spiderwebs became both resource and threat. You learned to distinguish between the sticky capture spirals and the safe anchor lines. Sometimes you deliberately hover near webs, waiting for the spider to wrap a caught insect, then dart in to steal the meal. It was dangerous work, requiring split-second timing and absolute precision. One miscalculation could leave you struggling in silk stronger than steel. Your navigation skills developed through trial and error. You memorized the locations of reliable food sources, creating mental maps that spanned several acres. A red maple here, a patch of cardinal flowers there, a reliable feeder maintained by helpful humans. You learned to read the landscape, understanding that south-facing slopes bloomed earlier, that sheltered valleys retained flowers longer, that certain trees attracted the insects you needed. The rhythm of your days became predictable, yet challenging. You'd wake before dawn, your body demanding immediate fuel after the night's fast. The first feeding session was crucial, providing energy for the day ahead. Then came the serious business of territorial maintenance. You'd patrol your claimed areas, chasing off intruders and defending your resources. Midday brought opportunities for hunting insects when the warming air carried them aloft. Afternoon meant more nectar feeding, building reserves for the night. Your encounters with humans became more frequent as you expanded your territory. Some were beneficial, maintaining feeders filled with sugar water that provided reliable nutrition. Others were problematic, their gardens designed more for human aesthetics than bird nutrition. You learned to distinguish between the two, becoming bolder around those who proved trustworthy. The art of energy management became second nature. You discovered that certain flowers provided more calories per visit, that some required more energy to access than they provided in return. You developed preferences, not just for taste, but for efficiency. A flower that could be emptied quickly was often preferable to one that offered more nectar, but required longer exposure to predators. Your aerial skills reached new heights as you matured. You could now fly backwards as easily as forwards, hover motionless in a crosswind, and execute turns that seemed to defy physics. Your wings beat at over 50 times per second, creating the humming sound that gave your species its name. You learned to use the sound as a communication tool, varying the pitch and rhythm to convey different messages to other hummingbirds. Competition shaped every aspect of your existence. You competed for food sources, for safe roosting spots, for the best hunting grounds. Sometimes cooperation was possible when food was abundant enough to share, but more often it was a zero-sum game where another bird's success meant your potential failure. You learned to read the subtle signals that indicated whether an encounter would be cooperative or competitive. The weather became a constant factor in your calculations. Rain made flying difficult and flowers less accessible. Wind could exhaust you quickly or help you travel efficiently, depending on its direction. Cold snaps could kill flowers overnight, forcing you to seek alternative food sources. You learned to sense approaching weather changes, adjusting your behavior accordingly. Your understanding of predator behavior grew more sophisticated. You recognized the hunting calls of different hawk species, knew which ones posed the greatest threat to a bird your size. You learned that cats were most dangerous during dawn and dusk, that snakes were threats primarily near ground-level water sources, that spiders were everywhere but most dangerous when you were focused on feeding. The concept of territory became central to your identity. You claimed and defended specific areas, marking them with your presence and your aggression toward intruders. Your territory wasn't just about food sources, it was about knowing every hiding spot, every escape route, every safe perch. This intimate knowledge of your environment was what kept you alive when threats appeared. As autumn approached, subtle changes in your behavior began to manifest. Your appetite increased dramatically, your body preparing for challenges you didn't yet consciously understand. The urge to feed became almost overwhelming, driving you to take risks you'd previously avoided. Something deep in your genetic programming was preparing you for the greatest test of your young life. Your body has developed into a tiny miracle of engineering. You're barely 3 grams of muscle and feathers, but you're already built for something incredible. Your heart beats over 1,200 times per minute, pumping life through a system that would make any engineer weep with envy. Your wings can rotate in ways that defy everything you thought you knew about flight. But here's the thing about being a hummingbird. You're not just learning to fly, you're learning to survive in a world that wants you dead. Every flower you visit could be your last meal. Every territorial dispute could end with you plummeting to the ground. Every migration could push your body beyond its absolute limits. You're living on the edge of possibility, and that edge is sharper than you think. Your first real test comes when you discover what hunger actually means. It's not just an empty stomach, it's a countdown timer ticking toward death. You need to eat every 10 to 15 minutes, or your body starts consuming itself. Your metabolism is so intense that you're basically a flying furnace that never stops burning fuel. You learn this lesson the hard way when you spend too long perfecting your hovering technique. The sun is setting, and you realize you haven't eaten in 20 minutes. Your vision starts to blur, your wings feel heavy. This isn't practice anymore. This is survival. You spot a patch of flowers just ahead, but there's a problem. Another hummingbird is already there, and it's bigger than you. It sees you coming and immediately goes into attack mode. This isn't a gentle disagreement. This is war. The larger bird dives at you with its beak, aimed like a spear. You barely dodge, feeling the wind from its wings as it shoots past. You try to circle around to the flowers, but it's faster. It slams into you midair, and for a moment you're both tumbling through space, wings tangled, beaks snapping. You break free and retreat to a nearby branch, your heart hammering even faster than usual. The other hummingbird hovers in front of the flowers, daring you to try again, but you can't give up. Those flowers aren't just food, they're life itself. You wait for your moment. The larger bird dips down to feed, and you make your move. You dive at maximum speed, not toward the flowers, but toward your competitor. You hit it from above, driving it down into the petals. It recovers quickly, but you're already at the flowers, drinking as fast as you can. The sweet nectar floods your system, and immediately you feel stronger. Your vision clears, your wings steady. You've learned something crucial about your new existence. In this world, the aggressive survive, the polite starve. As you grow stronger, you start to understand the complex social dynamics of hummingbird society. There are unspoken rules, territorial boundaries, and hierarchies based on size, speed, and pure aggression. You're still small, still learning, but you're getting better at reading the signs. An older female controls the best feeding territory in your area. She's fast, experienced, and absolutely ruthless. You watch her chase off birds twice your size with a combination of speed and tactical brilliance. She doesn't just fight, she outthinks her opponents. You start copying her techniques. Instead of engaging in head-on battles, you learn to use surprise attacks. You discover that sometimes retreating is actually advancing. You figure out how to use the environment to your advantage, diving through branches where larger birds can't follow. Your flying skills improve dramatically through these constant battles. You learn to stop on a dime, reverse direction instantly, and fly backwards faster than most birds can fly forward. Combat has made you into a precision instrument of aerial warfare. But the real challenge isn't other hummingbirds, it's everything else. You're diving toward a cluster of red flowers when a shadow passes overhead. Your instincts scream danger, and you veer hard to the left, just as a hawk's talons slice through the air where you were flying. The hawk is massive, impossibly fast, and it's already turning for another pass. You don't think. You dive straight down toward the ground, using your superior maneuverability to stay just ahead of those deadly talons. The hawk follows, but you're ready. At the last possible second, you pull up and shoot through a gap in the fence that's too small for your pursuer. The hawk slams into the fence with a frustrated screech. You hover on the other side, your tiny heart beating so fast you think it might explode. That was closer than you ever want to experience again. You start to understand that your small size isn't just a disadvantage, it's also your greatest weapon. You can hide in places larger birds can't reach. You can maneuver through obstacles that would stop a hawk cold. You can disappear into thick vegetation where predators lose sight of you completely. But size also makes you vulnerable in ways you never expected. A praying mantis strikes at you from a flower, its spiked arms nearly catching your head. A spider's web, invisible until you're already tangled in it, almost becomes your tomb. Even aggressive bees, defending their territory, can drive you away from food sources. You learn to approach every flower with caution. You hover first, scanning for threats. You've developed an almost paranoid awareness of your surroundings. Every shadow could be death. Every movement could be your last. The weather becomes another enemy. Rain drops hit you like water balloons, each one capable of knocking you out of the sky. You learn to read the clouds, to find shelter before storms hit. You discover that your feathers, while beautiful, become heavy and dangerous when wet. Cold is even worse. Your metabolism means you need constant fuel, but cold weather slows you down just when you need to be fastest. You start timing your feeding to build up energy reserves before temperature drops. You learn to enter a state called torpor, slowing your heart rate and metabolism to conserve energy during the coldest nights. Your first winter is a nightmare of survival. Food becomes scarce. The flowers you depend on disappear. You're forced to compete for tree sap, sugar water from human feeders, and tiny insects that provide protein. Every day is a battle against starvation. You watch other hummingbirds disappear. Some migrate to warmer climates, but you're not ready for that journey yet. Others simply don't make it through the cold months. You find their tiny bodies in the morning, victims of a metabolism that couldn't be sustained, but you survive. You learn to maximize every calorie. You discover new food sources. You become more efficient in your movements, wasting no energy on unnecessary flights. You develop a fierce determination that surprises even you. Spring arrives like a resurrection. Flowers bloom everywhere. Food is abundant. You've made it through your first winter, and you're no longer the weak, inexperienced bird you once were. You're a survivor, you're a fighter, you're ready for whatever comes next. Human activity becomes an increasingly important part of your world. You learn to recognize the people who fill feeders and the ones who try to swat you away. You discover that humans are creatures of habit, and you can predict their behavior almost as well as they can predict yours. Some humans seem to understand your needs. They plant flowers specifically for you. They maintain feeders with fresh sugar water. They create gardens that feel like paradise for a creature like you. You learn to trust these humans, to feed just meters away from them without fear. Others are threats. They use pesticides that poison your food sources. They remove plants you depend on. They allow cats to roam freely, creating danger zones you must avoid. You develop a complex relationship with human civilization, neither fully trusting nor completely avoiding it. You start to understand that your survival depends on adapting to a world that's constantly changing. The landscape shifts, new buildings appear, old food sources disappear, climate patterns change. You must be flexible, intelligent, and constantly learning. Your brain, tiny as it is, proves remarkably adaptable. You remember hundreds of feeding locations. You track which flowers refill with nectar and when. You learn the schedules of human feeders. You develop mental maps of your territory that rival any GPS system. But intelligence alone isn't enough. You need community. You start to recognize other hummingbirds, not as threats, but as sources of information. When one bird discovers a new food source, others follow. When danger appears, warning calls spread through the neighborhood. You're no longer just surviving, you're beginning to thrive. You've mastered the art of being a hummingbird, and you're ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. You've mastered the art of survival, learned to navigate the complex social dynamics of your species, and established yourself as a force to be reckoned with in the hummingbird world. But your story is far from over. The seasons are changing, and with them comes one of the most profound chapters of your existence. Migration season is approaching, and for the first time, you're about to experience what it truly means to be a hummingbird. The urge starts as a whisper. Something deep in your bones tells you that change is coming. The days are getting shorter, the air carries a different scent, and the flowers that once bloomed abundantly are starting to fade. Your body begins to respond to signals you've never felt before. Your appetite increases dramatically. You're not just eating to survive anymore, you're eating to fuel one of the most incredible journeys in the animal kingdom. You spend your days in a feeding frenzy. Every flower, every feeder, every insect becomes crucial. Your body is preparing for what lies ahead, storing fat reserves that will literally mean the difference between life and death. Other hummingbirds around you are doing the same thing. The territorial disputes that once seemed so important now take a back seat to this overwhelming need to consume as much energy as possible. Your weight increases by nearly 50%. For a creature that normally weighs less than a penny, this is a massive transformation. Your flight becomes slightly more labored, but your instincts tell you this is exactly what needs to happen. You're building the fuel tank that will carry you across hundreds, maybe thousands of miles. Then one morning, everything changes. The urge that started as a whisper becomes a roar. Your body is telling you it's time to leave. You don't question it, you don't hesitate. You simply know that staying here any longer would be a mistake. Other hummingbirds around you are feeling the same pull. Some have already disappeared overnight, beginning their incredible journey south. You take off, joining what becomes a loose stream of migrants. You're not traveling in a flock like geese or ducks. Hummingbirds migrate alone, each following the same ancient pathways, but at your own pace, guided by instincts that have been refined over millions of years. The landscape below you begins to change as you fly, but you barely notice. Your focus is entirely on the rhythm of your wings and the internal compass that guides you forward. The first few days are manageable. You stop frequently to feed, refueling at flowers and feeders that seem strategically placed along your route. But as you continue south, the journey becomes more challenging. You're flying over terrain that offers fewer feeding opportunities. Mountains rise up before you, forcing you to climb to altitudes where the air is thin and every wing beat becomes more difficult. Then comes the ultimate test. You reach the Gulf of Mexico, and your instincts tell you to keep going, straight across. It's a 600-mile stretch of open water with nowhere to land, nowhere to rest, and nowhere to feed. For any other bird your size, this would be impossible. But you're a hummingbird, and impossible is just another word for Tuesday. You launch yourself out over the water. Your wings beat at their normal rate, but now every movement is precious. The fat reserves you built up over the past weeks are your only fuel. There's no turning back now. Below you, the water stretches endlessly in every direction. Above you, the sky offers no landmarks, no familiar territories. You're navigating by feel, by instinct, by something deeper than conscious thought. Hours pass. Your body starts to feel the strain. Your fat reserves are being burned at an incredible rate. Other hummingbirds around you are making the same journey, but you can't see them. Each of you is alone in this vast expanse, fighting your own private battle against exhaustion and the relentless pull of gravity. The wind picks up, and suddenly you're not just fighting fatigue, you're fighting the elements. Crosswinds push you off course. Headwinds slow your progress. Every gust of air threatens to drain your energy reserves even faster. You adjust your flight path instinctively, but the corrections cost precious energy. Night falls, and you're still flying. Hummingbirds aren't built for night flight, but migration changes everything. Your body adapts, your vision adjusts, and you keep going. The stars above become your only companions in this endless journey. Some hummingbirds don't make it. They run out of fuel, their bodies give out, and they fall into the dark water below. But you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the next wing beat, the next mile, the next breath. Dawn breaks, and you're still over water. But something has changed. The quality of light is different. The air smells different. And then finally, you see it. A thin line on the horizon that gradually becomes clearer. Land. You've made it across the Gulf of Mexico, completing one of the most incredible feats in the animal kingdom. But your journey isn't over. You still have hundreds of miles to go before you reach your wintering grounds. You make landfall, exhausted but alive, and immediately begin searching for food. Your body has burned through most of its fat reserves, and you need to refuel quickly. The flowers here are different from the ones back home, but your instincts guide you to the right sources of nectar. You spend several days recovering, rebuilding your strength for the final leg of your journey. Other hummingbirds are doing the same. You share feeding areas with species you've never seen before, migrants from different regions, all following their own ancient routes to the same general destination. The final push south takes you through landscapes that seem alien compared to your breeding grounds. Tropical forests replace temperate woodlands. The flowers are more exotic, the insects different, the very air itself feels foreign, but your body adapts quickly. This is what you were designed for. This is what millions of years of evolution have prepared you for. You finally reach your wintering grounds, a place that will be your home for the next several months. It's warmer here. The flowers bloom year round, and the competition for resources is different, but manageable. You establish new routines, find new food sources, and settle into a rhythm that will sustain you through the winter months. But even as you adapt to your new environment, part of you is already preparing for the return journey. Your body knows that this is temporary. Come spring, you'll make the incredible journey back north, returning to the breeding grounds where this whole cycle began. Some hummingbirds will return to the exact same territory, the exact same feeders, the exact same flowers they left months earlier. The precision is remarkable, the navigation abilities almost supernatural. Your first migration is complete, but it's just the beginning. If you survive, you'll make this journey multiple times throughout your life. Each trip will be slightly different, influenced by weather patterns, food availability, and the ever-changing landscape below. But the core challenge remains the same, pushing your tiny body to its absolute limits, trusting in instincts older than civilization, and completing one of nature's most remarkable feats. This is what it means to be a hummingbird. Not just the hovering, not just the speed, not just the territorial battles. It's this, the migration, the incredible journey that defines your species and separates you from almost every other creature on Earth. You've just completed something that defies logic, challenges physics, and amazes anyone who takes the time to truly understand what you've accomplished. The small bird with the impossibly fast wings has just proven that size doesn't determine capability. You've crossed continents, navigated by instinct, and survived challenges that would overwhelm creatures many times your size. Your migration is complete, but your story continues. Tomorrow brings new challenges, new territories to explore, and new limits to push, because that's what hummingbirds do. You don't just survive, you thrive in the impossible. You've crossed the Gulf of Mexico, that incredible 500-mile stretch of open water that should have been impossible for something as small as you. Your tiny heart beat nearly 1,300 times per minute during that journey. Your wings moved in figure-8 patterns 80 times every second without stopping. You burned through half your body weight in fat reserves, and somehow, miraculously, you made it. But survival isn't a destination, it's a process, and your process is far from over. The world you return to each spring isn't the same world you left. Territories shift, resources change, competition intensifies. You don't get to ease back into life after migration. You hit the ground running, or more accurately, you hit the ground hovering. Every flower, every feeder, every prime nesting spot has to be fought for all over again. This isn't a vacation home you're returning to. This is a battlefield where only the strongest, fastest, and most aggressive survive. Your metabolism hasn't slowed down just because you've completed the journey. If anything, it's ramped up. You need to eat every 10 to 15 minutes, consuming more than half your body weight in nectar daily. But here's the problem. You're not the only hummingbird who survived migration. The competition is fierce, and everyone else is just as desperate as you are. That perfect patch of flowers you remember from last year, 3 other hummingbirds are already defending it. The sugar water feeder that sustained you before your journey, it's surrounded by aggressive males who've staked their claim. Territory becomes everything. You don't just want a good feeding area, you need it. Your survival depends on securing a reliable food source, and that means fighting for it. Hummingbird territorial disputes aren't gentle affairs. You dive bomb intruders at speeds that would make fighter pilots nervous. You chase rivals through obstacle courses of branches and leaves, your wings beating so fast they create sonic booms in miniature. You engage in aerial combat that looks like dogfighting, complete with barrel rolls, sudden stops, and high-speed pursuits that can last for minutes. The battles are relentless. A ruby-throated hummingbird invades your space, and you don't hesitate. You launch yourself forward, your gorget flashing brilliant red in the sunlight as you issue your challenge. The intruder doesn't back down. What follows is a high-speed chase through gardens, around trees, over rooftops. You're both burning precious energy, but neither of you can afford to lose. Territory isn't just about pride, it's about survival. You establish your dominance through a combination of speed, aggression, and pure determination. You learn the patrol routes that keep your area secure. You memorize every flower, every branch, every potential perch where a rival might land. You develop a routine that maximizes your feeding efficiency while minimizing vulnerability. Early morning belongs to you. The best flowers open first, and you're there waiting. You feed quickly, efficiently, your tongue darting in and out of blossoms 13 times per second. But territory isn't just about food, it's about positioning for the next phase of your life cycle. Prime real estate attracts mates. Females scout territories, not just for immediate resources, but for the potential to raise young. A male who can't defend his territory won't get the chance to pass on his genes. The pressure is constant, the stakes are absolute. Your daily routine becomes a masterclass in efficiency and vigilance. You wake before dawn, your internal clock calibrated to maximize feeding opportunities. The pre-dawn hours are crucial. Flowers are heavy with nectar, and most competitors are still sluggish. You move through your territory systematically, hitting every reliable source. Spider webs yield protein-rich insects. Tree sap provides concentrated sugars. Feeders offer consistent, high-energy fuel. Mid-morning brings increased activity. Other hummingbirds are fully active now, and territorial disputes intensify. You spend significant energy defending your space, chasing off intruders, establishing dominance. It's exhausting work, but absolutely necessary. A moment of weakness, a single successful invasion, and suddenly your carefully maintained territory is under threat. The afternoon heat creates different challenges. Flowers may close or reduce nectar production. You adapt by expanding your foraging range, taking calculated risks to explore new food sources. You discover that certain flowers bloom in cycles, that timing your visits can maximize your intake. You learn which feeders are refilled on schedule, which gardens are maintained by humans who understand hummingbird needs. Weather becomes a constant factor in your survival equation. Rain doesn't just make flying difficult, it dilutes nectar and makes insects harder to catch. You wait out storms in sheltered locations, your body temperature dropping to conserve energy. Wind creates navigation challenges that require constant adjustment. Hot days force you to seek shade and water for cooling. Cold snaps can be deadly if you haven't built up adequate fat reserves. Your feeding technique reaches peak efficiency. You don't just stick your beak into flowers randomly. You've learned to read each blossom, to know exactly where the nectar pools, how deep to probe, how long to hover. Your tongue, with its forked tip and capillary action, extracts every available drop. You visit over 2,000 flowers daily, but you don't waste motion or energy on poor quality sources. Predators remain a constant threat. Hawks hunt you with deadly precision. Praying mantises position themselves on feeders like living traps. Cats learn your flight patterns and ambush locations. Your survival depends on hypervigilance, on processing threats while maintaining your feeding schedule. You develop escape routes, emergency maneuvers, backup feeding locations in case your primary territory becomes compromised. The stress of constant vigilance takes its toll. Your heart rate rarely drops just below 250 beats per minute. Even at rest, your wings show wear from the constant beating, the endless territorial battles, the precision flying required for feeding. Feathers become damaged and must be replaced through molting. Your body is a high-performance machine running at maximum capacity with minimal maintenance windows. Memory becomes your greatest asset. You remember every flower's blooming schedule, every feeder's refill pattern, every rival's behavioral quirks. You map your territory with GPS-like precision, knowing exactly where to find food at any time of day. You recognize individual humans who maintain feeders, learning their schedules and preferences. You identify safe roosting spots, emergency shelter locations, optimal perching sites for territorial surveillance. Social dynamics add another layer of complexity. Hummingbirds aren't solitary by choice, you're solitary by necessity. Resources are too limited for cooperation, but you develop a grudging awareness of your neighbors. You learn which rivals are truly dangerous and which are mostly bluster. You establish boundaries that minimize direct conflict while maximizing your access to food. The breeding season intensifies every aspect of your existence. Males become more aggressive, more territorial, more willing to fight to the death over prime locations. Females become more selective, evaluating not just immediate resources, but long-term potential. The aerial displays become more elaborate, more dangerous, more energetically expensive. Courtship flights that reach 60 miles per hour, dive displays that pull multiple Gs, territorial battles that last hours. Your success isn't measured in comfort or ease. It's measured in survival, in maintaining your territory, in positioning yourself for reproductive success. Every day you survive is a victory against overwhelming odds. Every successful feeding session is a triumph over competition and predation. Every territorial dispute won is a step toward genetic continuity. The cycle never ends. Each season brings new challenges, new competitors, new threats. Migration looms again, requiring preparation, fat accumulation, route planning. Your body must be ready for another impossible journey across vast distances. Your territory must be maintained until the last possible moment, then abandoned for months, then reclaimed upon return. This is life at the absolute edge of possibility. Your existence pushes the boundaries of what's physically achievable for a warm-blooded creature. You represent millions of years of evolutionary refinement, a living example of what's possible when survival demands absolute perfection. Every aspect of your biology, your behavior, your daily routine is optimized for one thing: staying alive in a world that constantly tries to kill you. The remarkable thing isn't just that you survive, it's that you thrive. Despite the endless challenges, the constant threats, the impossible energy demands, you continue, you adapt, you overcome, you persist. Your tiny heart keeps beating at superhuman rates. Your wings keep moving in perfect synchronization. Your spirit keeps fighting for every flower, every drop of nectar, every moment of existence. You know what's incredible about your life at this point? You've managed to survive everything the world has thrown at you. You've crossed the Gulf of Mexico on nothing but stored fat and pure determination. You've fought off territorial rivals twice your size. You've dodged hawks, outmaneuvered cats, and somehow managed to find enough nectar to keep your heart beating over 1,200 times per minute. But here's the thing about being a hummingbird. The game never stops. There's no retirement plan, no slowing down, no taking it easy in your golden years. Every single day is still a fight for survival. The morning light hits your territory, and you're already moving. Your body burns through energy so fast that you literally cannot afford to sleep in. While other birds might take their time waking up, stretching, maybe preening a bit before they start their day, you're already at the first feeder. Your metabolism is so intense that you're essentially living on the edge of starvation every single moment. Miss a few meals, and you're done. It's that simple, but you've gotten good at this. Really good. You know exactly which flowers in your territory bloom at what time of day. You've memorized the feeding schedule of every human in a 3-block radius. You can predict when the bee balm will have fresh nectar and when the trumpet vine will be picked clean by competitors. This isn't just survival anymore, it's mastery. Your territory has expanded too. What started as a desperate claim on a single feeder has grown into a carefully managed empire. You control 17 different nectar sources now, 3 hummingbird feeders, 2 patches of bee balm, a trumpet vine that produces nectar all day long, some cardinal flowers by the creek, and a handful of other plants that most hummingbirds don't even know about. You've also figured out the spider situation. There are 11 different spider webs in your territory that you check regularly, not because you're looking for trouble, but because you need the protein. A spider web means trapped insects, and trapped insects mean easy meals. The interesting thing is how much your behavior has changed. When you were younger, you were reactive. A competitor would show up, and you'd immediately chase them off, burning precious energy on dramatic aerial battles. Now you're strategic. You let smaller hummingbirds feed at the less productive flowers while you guard the premium spots. You've learned to recognize which intruders are just passing through and which ones are actually trying to claim territory. You pick your battles. There's this one, Anna's hummingbird, that keeps testing your boundaries. She's been showing up every few days for the past month, always approaching from the east side of your territory. She's smart about it too. She doesn't go straight for your best feeder. Instead, she starts with the cardinal flowers, almost like she's testing your response time. The first few times she did this, you went after her immediately. But now you've realized something interesting. She always leaves after taking nectar from just 2 flowers. She's not trying to take over. She's just desperate enough to risk your wrath for a quick meal. So you've developed this strange relationship with her. You still chase her off because you have to maintain your reputation, but you don't chase her as far. You've essentially created a system where she can grab a quick meal and you can maintain your territory without wasting too much energy. It's not friendship. It's not cooperation. It's just efficient resource management. The real threats are different. There's a male rufous hummingbird who showed up last week, and he's not playing games. He's bigger than you, more aggressive, and he's clearly looking to claim territory. He doesn't just want a quick meal, he wants to own your feeders. This is the kind of challenge that could end everything you've built. You've already had 3 serious battles with him, and while you've won each time, it's getting harder. The problem is that you're not as young as you used to be. Your reflexes are still sharp, your flying is still precise, but you don't recover from fights as quickly. After that last battle with the rufous, you needed almost 10 minutes to catch your breath. 2 years ago, you would have been back to feeding within seconds. Time is starting to matter in ways it never did before, but experience counts for something. You know things now that younger hummingbirds don't. You know that the red feeder by the kitchen window gets refilled every Tuesday and Friday. You know that the bee balm produces the most nectar right after it rains. You know which cats in the neighborhood are actually dangerous and which ones are too lazy to be a real threat. You know that the Cooper's hawk that hunts this area always approaches from the north, and you know exactly which branch he likes to perch on. This knowledge keeps you alive in ways that pure speed and aggression never could. Yesterday, you were feeding at the trumpet vine when something made you freeze. Not a sound, not a movement, just a feeling. You launched yourself straight up, just as the Cooper's hawk's talons closed on the spot where you'd been hovering. He missed by inches. A younger hummingbird might not have sensed the danger until it was too late. Experience saved your life. The seasonal changes are more noticeable now, too. You can feel autumn approaching in ways that have nothing to do with temperature or daylight. Your body is already starting to prepare for migration, laying down the fat reserves you'll need for the journey south. But this year feels different. The preparation feels more urgent, more desperate. Your body seems to understand something your mind hasn't quite accepted yet. You're spending more time at the feeders now, sometimes hovering there for an extra second or two after you've finished drinking. It's inefficient, and inefficiency is usually fatal for a hummingbird, but you can't seem to help yourself. There's something comforting about the familiar spots, the reliable sources of energy that have kept you alive this long. The other hummingbirds in the area have noticed the change too. They're testing your boundaries more often, probing for signs of weakness, that Anna's hummingbird is staying longer during her visits. The rufous is making more aggressive moves toward your primary feeder. Even the tiny calliope hummingbirds, who usually avoid confrontation entirely, are venturing closer to your territory. You're still winning the battles, but they're harder now. Your victory margins are smaller. Where you once dominated through pure intimidation, now you have to actually fight. Where you once could chase off intruders with a single aggressive dive, now you sometimes have to chase them all the way to the edge of your territory before they'll retreat. But here's what's interesting about this stage of your life. You're not just surviving anymore, you're almost thriving. Your territory is more efficiently managed than it's ever been. You waste less energy on unnecessary flights. You've optimized your feeding routes to minimize travel time between nectar sources. You've even figured out how to use the wind patterns around your territory to make longer flights less exhausting. You've also developed relationships with some of the humans in your area. There's one woman who always seems to appear when you're feeding at her window feeder. She doesn't try to get close. She just watches from inside the house. Over time, you've realized she's not a threat. She's actually helpful. She keeps the feeder full, keeps it clean, and she's even added new flowers to her garden that you can use. There's another human, a man who sits on his porch every morning with a cup of coffee. He's learned your schedule. He knows you'll be at his feeder right around 7:30, and he's started timing his coffee so he can watch you feed. Again, not a threat, just a predictable part of your environment. These relationships aren't friendship in any meaningful sense, but they're stability. In a world where everything is constantly trying to kill you, stability matters. Predictable humans are better than unpredictable ones. Known threats are easier to manage than unknown ones. The migration preparation is intensifying now. Your body is demanding more and more nectar, building up the fat reserves that will carry you thousands of miles south. You're eating almost constantly, visiting every nectar source in your territory multiple times per day. The urgency is building, that ancestral pull toward warmer climates and more abundant food sources. But this year, for the first time, you're hesitating. This territory has been your life for the past 2 years. You've fought for every flower, every feeder, every spider web. You've memorized every branch, every threat, every opportunity. Leaving feels like losing everything you've worked for, but staying means facing winter, and winter means death. There's no choice, really. There never was. The other hummingbirds are starting to leave. You can feel it in the way they feed, more frantic, more desperate. They're building up their own reserves, preparing for their own journeys. Soon, you'll be the only one left, and then you'll have to go too, but not yet, not today. Today, you still have a territory to defend, feeders to visit, and threats to face. Today, you're still the ruler of your small corner of the world. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again, because that's what hummingbirds do. That's what you do until you can't anymore. As autumn arrives and the temperatures begin to drop, your internal clock responds to the changing daylight hours. The decreasing photoperiod triggers a cascade of hormonal changes that prepare your body for one of nature's most remarkable journeys. Your metabolism shifts into overdrive, converting every available food source into precious fat reserves that will fuel the incredible voyage ahead. The urge to migrate isn't a conscious decision. It's an ancient programming written into your DNA, passed down through countless generations of your ancestors who made the same treacherous journey. Your body begins producing more red blood cells, increasing your oxygen-carrying capacity for the sustained flight ahead. Your heart grows stronger, your flight muscles become more efficient, and your entire physiology transforms to meet the demands of long-distance travel. You're not making this journey alone. Other hummingbirds are feeling the same irresistible pull, the same biological imperative that drives you to leave the familiar territories you've known. The timing is critical because waiting too long means facing harsh weather conditions that could prove fatal, while leaving too early means abandoning valuable feeding opportunities that could provide essential energy reserves. Your feeding behavior intensifies dramatically as migration approaches. You're consuming nearly twice your body weight in nectar daily, visiting hundreds of flowers, and supplementing with protein-rich insects whenever possible. Every calorie counts because the journey ahead will test your endurance to its absolute limits. Your body weight increases by up to 40%, mostly in the form of fat that will serve as your primary fuel source during the long flight. The route you'll take has been traveled by your species for thousands of years. You don't need a map or compass because the pathway is encoded in your genetic memory. Magnetic fields, celestial navigation, and landscape features all serve as guideposts on your journey. Your brain processes these navigational cues automatically, calculating distance, direction, and timing with remarkable precision. As you begin your southward journey, you join a loose stream of other hummingbirds following ancient flyways. Some will take the coastal route, hugging the shoreline where flowers and insects provide regular refueling opportunities. Others will choose the more direct but dangerous path across the Gulf of Mexico, a non-stop flight that covers over 500 miles of open water. The Gulf crossing is perhaps the most perilous part of your entire life cycle. There are no flowers to visit, no insects to catch, and no place to rest during the 18 to 20-hour flight. Your fat reserves must sustain you completely as you beat your wings nearly 3,000 times per minute, hour after hour, through the night and into the following day. Many hummingbirds don't survive this crossing, succumbing to exhaustion, storms, or simply running out of energy before reaching land. Weather conditions can make or break your migration. Favorable tailwinds can speed your journey and conserve precious energy, while headwinds force you to work harder and consume more fuel. Storms can blow you off course, disorient your navigation systems, and drain your energy reserves fighting against powerful winds and rain. Some hummingbirds are forced to make emergency landings on ships or oil platforms in the Gulf, desperate for any place to rest before continuing their journey. The physical toll of migration is extraordinary. Your heart rate remains elevated for hours at a time, pumping blood to muscles that are working at maximum capacity. Your respiratory system operates at peak efficiency, extracting every molecule of oxygen from the air. Your body temperature fluctuates as you work to maintain optimal conditions for flight while burning through your fat reserves at an incredible rate. Navigation during migration relies on multiple sensory systems working in concert. You can detect the Earth's magnetic field through specialized cells in your beak and eyes, providing a built-in compass that guides your direction. The position of the sun and stars offers additional navigational reference points, while familiar landmarks help you stay on course. Your brain integrates all this information seamlessly, making constant micro adjustments to your flight path. The social dynamics of migration are fascinating yet limited. While you might encounter other hummingbirds along the route, this isn't a coordinated group effort like the migrations of geese or cranes. Each bird is focused on its own survival, competing for the same limited resources at stopover sites. Territorial disputes still occur during migration, though they're typically brief as everyone shares the same urgent need to continue moving south. Stopover sites become crucial waypoints during your journey. These are areas with abundant flowers, reliable water sources, and relative safety from predators. You might spend several days at a particularly good stopover site, rebuilding your energy reserves before continuing the journey. Competition for these prime locations can be intense, with dozens of hummingbirds vying for access to the best feeding opportunities. As you cross different landscapes during migration, you encounter new challenges and opportunities. Desert regions offer unique flowering plants but limited water sources. Mountain ranges create updrafts that can assist your flight, but also present obstacles and weather hazards. Coastal areas provide steady winds and diverse plant communities, but also expose you to salt spray and maritime weather patterns. The timing of your migration must align with the flowering cycles of plants along your route. Too early and the flowers haven't bloomed yet. Too late and they've already finished their peak nectar production. Climate change is disrupting these carefully synchronized relationships, forcing some hummingbirds to adjust their migration timing or seek alternative food sources along traditional routes. Your body undergoes remarkable physiological changes during the actual flight. Your liver works overtime to convert stored fat into usable energy, while your kidneys manage the metabolic waste products generated by intense muscle activity. Your digestive system essentially shuts down during long flights, redirecting all available energy to your flight muscles and essential life support systems. The final approach to your wintering grounds brings both relief and new challenges. You've survived the most dangerous part of your annual cycle, but now you must establish yourself in unfamiliar territory. The tropical and subtropical regions, where you'll spend the winter months, have their own predators, diseases, and competitive pressures. Other hummingbirds have already claimed the best territories, forcing you to fight for whatever suitable habitat remains available. Your arrival in the wintering grounds marks the beginning of a new phase in your life cycle, but the memory of this incredible journey remains embedded in your cells. The same genetic programming that guided you south will eventually call you north again when the seasons change. For now, though, you've accomplished one of nature's most remarkable feats of endurance and navigation, crossing thousands of miles under your own power to reach the warm refuge where you'll spend the winter months preparing for the challenges that lie ahead. Your wintering grounds have become a second home. For months, you've claimed territories, defended feeders, and thrived in this warmer climate. But now, deep in your DNA, something ancient stirs. The daylight hours are shifting, temperatures are warming, and an invisible biological clock tells you it's time to return north. Spring migration isn't just a journey back to where you came from. It's a race against time to claim the best breeding territories before anyone else gets there. The preparation begins weeks before you actually leave. Your body starts transforming again, building up fat reserves and muscle mass. You increase your feeding intensity, visiting flowers and feeders more frequently. Every calorie counts because you're about to embark on another death-defying journey across hundreds of miles of open water, hostile terrain, and unpredictable weather. Your heart rate increases, your metabolism shifts into overdrive, and your navigation systems activate. The magnetic pull northward becomes impossible to ignore. Weather patterns become your obsession. You can sense atmospheric pressure changes, wind directions, and storm systems approaching from hundreds of miles away. A high-pressure system with favorable tailwinds signals the perfect departure window. Too early, and you'll face brutal headwinds or late-season storms. Too late, and all the prime nesting sites will be taken by rivals who made better timing decisions. You wait, watching the skies, feeling the air pressure, until conditions align perfectly. The night before departure, you feed more intensively than you have in weeks. Your body weight increases by nearly 30% as you pack on the fat reserves that will fuel your nonstop flight. Your liver converts sugars into stored energy. Your flight muscles prepare for the most demanding physical challenge of your life, and your brain fine-tunes the navigation systems that will guide you across vast stretches of featureless ocean. Sleep becomes restless as your body buzzes with anticipation and preparation. At dawn, you launch into the sky with thousands of other hummingbirds, all following the same ancient migratory route. The Gulf of Mexico stretches endlessly ahead, a blue void that offers no landing spots, no food sources, and no mercy for those who miscalculate. Your wings beat at their maximum sustainable rate. Your heart pounds at over 1,200 beats per minute, and your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. This is the ultimate test of your physical capabilities and mental endurance. Flying over open water creates a unique psychological challenge. There are no landmarks to guide you, no familiar territories to orient yourself, and no backup plans if something goes wrong. You rely entirely on your internal compass, using the Earth's magnetic field, the position of the sun, and even polarized light patterns to maintain your heading. Your brain processes thousands of navigational inputs simultaneously, making constant micro-adjustments to keep you on course toward your breeding grounds. Hours pass in a blur of wing beats and determination. Your fat reserves burn steadily, providing the energy needed to maintain flight speed. Dehydration becomes a constant concern as you lose moisture through rapid breathing and have no opportunity to drink. Your body temperature fluctuates as you struggle to regulate heat production while flying at maximum capacity. Other migrants around you begin to falter, some dropping toward the water when their energy reserves run out. You don't look back because stopping means certain death. Halfway across the Gulf, exhaustion sets in. Your wing beats become less precise, your altitude drops slightly, and your navigation becomes more challenging as fatigue clouds your judgment. This is when many hummingbirds don't make it. The temptation to rest becomes overwhelming, but there's nowhere to land. You dig deeper into your energy reserves, pushing beyond what seems physically possible. Your body starts burning muscle tissue for fuel, cannibalizing itself to maintain flight. Weather can turn deadly without warning. Sudden storms create headwinds that double your energy expenditure, forcing you to fly harder just to maintain forward progress. Rain soaks your feathers, adding weight and reducing your aerodynamic efficiency. Lightning illuminates the dark sky around you, and you fly through walls of precipitation that make navigation nearly impossible. Some migrants get blown off course by powerful storm systems, ending up hundreds of miles from their intended destination. Then, after what feels like an eternity of wing beats and suffering, you see it, a thin line of green on the horizon, land. The Louisiana coast appears gradually, growing larger and more defined with each passing mile. Your energy reserves are nearly depleted, your body weight has dropped dramatically, and you're running on fumes and pure determination. But you've made it. You've successfully crossed the Gulf of Mexico for the second time in your life. Landing on the first available tree branch, you collapse in exhaustion. Your legs can barely grip the bark, your wings hang loosely at your sides, and your breathing is labored and irregular. Other migrants around you are in similar condition, having pushed their bodies to the absolute limit. Recovery becomes your immediate priority. You need food, water, and rest before you can continue the journey north to your breeding grounds. The coastal region offers abundant food sources specifically timed for spring migration. Flowers bloom in sequence, providing nectar sources exactly when exhausted hummingbirds need them most. You feed frantically, trying to replenish the energy reserves you've just burned crossing the Gulf. Your body begins the recovery process, rebuilding muscle tissue, restoring fat reserves, and repairing the cellular damage caused by extreme exertion. Competition for food sources intensifies as thousands of migrants concentrate in relatively small coastal areas. Territorial disputes break out constantly as exhausted birds fight over the best feeding spots. You engage in aerial battles with other hummingbirds, even though you can barely fly. Survival instincts override exhaustion as you defend access to the nectar sources that will determine whether you can continue north or die on the coast. After several days of intensive feeding and recovery, you resume your northward journey. The landscape changes gradually as you follow ancient migratory routes through Texas, across Arkansas, and into the heartland of North America. Your energy levels improve with each day of travel, and your body begins to rebuild the strength lost during the Gulf crossing. Navigation becomes easier as familiar landmarks guide you toward your natal territory. The closer you get to your breeding grounds, the more urgent your mission becomes. Prime nesting territories are limited, and early arrivals get the best locations. You push your flight speed to the maximum sustainable rate, stopping only briefly to feed and rest. Competition from other males intensifies as you approach the territories where breeding will occur. Every mile northward brings you closer to the ultimate goal of your entire existence. Finally, you arrive at the forest where you were born. The trees look familiar, the flower patterns match your genetic memory, and the terrain feels like home. But everything has changed. Other males have already claimed the best territories, establishing dominance hierarchies and defending prime nesting sites. You're going to have to fight for every square meter of land, every nectar source, and every opportunity to mate. Your breeding territory becomes your obsession. You patrol the boundaries constantly, chasing away intruders and advertising your presence to potential mates. The small patch of forest you defend contains everything necessary for successful reproduction: abundant flowers, suitable nesting sites, and protection from predators. You've traveled thousands of miles and risked death multiple times to claim this space, and you'll defend it with your life. The days grow shorter now, and something in your tiny body knows what's coming. You've ruled these gardens and feeders for months, your heart beating over 1,000 times per minute as you defended every blossom, every drop of sugar water from intruders. But now that relentless engine is beginning to wear down. Your feathers have lost some of their iridescent shine. The perfect emerald and ruby that once caught sunlight like jewels now appears duller, more muted. Your flight patterns, once razor sharp and effortless, require more energy than before. Where you used to hover motionless for minutes, now you need to rest more frequently on thin branches that bend under your weight. The insects you hunt seem faster somehow, or maybe you're just slower. Your reaction time, once measured in milliseconds, has stretched just enough to make the difference between a successful strike and a missed opportunity. The moths that used to be easy prey now escape more often, disappearing into the darkness before your beak can reach them. Sleep comes more easily now, which should be a relief, but isn't. You find yourself drowsing during the day, something that would have been impossible in your prime when every second was spent either feeding or fighting. Your territorial calls, once sharp and threatening enough to send rivals fleeing, now sound weaker even to your own ears. The other hummingbirds sense it too. The younger males that once gave your territory a wide berth now test your boundaries more boldly. They hover at the edges of your domain, making quick raids on your best flowers before retreating. A few months ago, you would have chased them across entire valleys. Now you barely have the energy to drive them from your immediate vicinity. Your memory, once sharp enough to remember the exact location of thousands of flowers across miles of terrain, begins to fade in small ways. You find yourself returning to patches that have already been emptied or forgetting the timing of when certain blooms open their petals. These lapses are subtle but significant in a life measured by such precise calculations. The feeders that humans maintain become more important to you now. The concentrated sugar water requires less energy to obtain than hunting down scattered blossoms, and you find yourself becoming more dependent on these artificial sources. But even here, competition is fierce, and you can't always summon the strength to dominate the way you once did. Your grooming routine, once meticulous and thorough, becomes more rushed. The careful maintenance of every feather, every claw, every part of your aerodynamic form begins to slip. Small imperfections accumulate, creating tiny inefficiencies that add up to larger problems in a creature where every detail matters. The weight loss is gradual but noticeable. Your body, evolved to be as light as possible while maintaining maximum power, begins to consume itself. Muscle mass decreases first, then fat reserves that took so much effort to build. Your once perfect power-to-weight ratio shifts in the wrong direction. One morning, you wake up and something is different. The world seems slightly out of focus, and your balance feels off. When you try to take flight, your wings don't respond with their usual precision. You manage to get airborne, but the effort leaves you exhausted in a way that feels fundamentally different from normal fatigue. A simple trip to your favorite feeder becomes an ordeal. Halfway there, you're forced to land on a branch to rest, your tiny chest heaving as you struggle to catch your breath. Other hummingbirds zip past you, their wings creating the familiar humming sound that seems to mock your current state. The feeder itself presents new challenges. Hovering while feeding, once as natural as breathing, now requires conscious effort. Your wings beat frantically to maintain position, but you can't hold it for long. You're forced to perch on the edge of the feeder, something you avoided doing in your prime because it left you vulnerable to attacks from other birds. As you drink, your head feels heavy, and the sweet liquid that once provided instant energy now seems to sit in your stomachs like a weight. You take what you can and retreat to a quiet spot in the dense foliage, somewhere you can rest without being seen by rivals who might take advantage of your weakness. The next few days blur together in a haze of shortened flights and longer rests. Your territory, one spanning several acres, shrinks to just a few key feeding spots that you can still defend with whatever energy remains. You pick your battles carefully now, retreating from confrontations that you would have won easily just weeks before. Your body temperature, always difficult to regulate in a creature so small, becomes harder to maintain. You find yourself seeking out sunny spots more frequently, trying to absorb warmth from the environment rather than generating it internally. The energy cost of thermoregulation, once barely noticeable, now represents a significant portion of your daily budget. Sleep, when it comes, brings strange dreams filled with flowers that retreat when you approach and territories that shift and change beneath you. You dream of the long migrations you've completed, the thousands of miles of ocean and land that you've crossed, powered by nothing but determination and stored fat. But even in dreams, those journeys now seem impossibly difficult. One afternoon, as you rest on a familiar branch overlooking your diminished territory, you notice that your vision is becoming cloudy. The sharp eyesight that allowed you to spot the tiniest insects from incredible distances is failing. Colors appear muted, and distances become harder to judge. Flying becomes increasingly dangerous as your depth perception deteriorates. The realization comes slowly, as these things often do. Your body, pushed to its absolute limits for years, functioning at a metabolic rate that would kill most creatures, has finally reached the end of its capacity. The cellular damage accumulated over thousands of hours of flight, millions of wing beats, and countless high-energy maneuvers has become too much to repair. You make one last attempt to visit your favorite flower, a patch of bee balm that has sustained you through many difficult periods. But halfway there, your wings simply stop responding properly. You flutter erratically, losing altitude despite your desperate efforts to stay airborne. The ground rushes up to meet you, and you land heavily in the soft grass beneath the flowers you can no longer reach. So you too. Your tiny heart, which has beaten over 1 billion times in your short life, begins to slow. The hum of your wings, the sound that gave your species its name, fades to silence. As your eyes close for the final time, the garden around you continues its eternal cycle, with younger hummingbirds already moving in to claim the territory you can no longer defend. As your body finally succumbs to the accumulated wear of countless flights, territorial battles, and the relentless demands of survival, you settle onto a familiar perch for the last time. Your tiny heart, which has beaten over 1 billion times throughout your brief but extraordinary existence, begins to slow its frantic rhythm. The same heart that once sustained you through impossible migrations and endless hours of hovering now struggles to maintain the energy your body desperately needs. Your breathing becomes labored, each tiny inhalation requiring more effort than the last. The world around you seems to fade at the edges, colors becoming less vibrant, sounds growing distant. Your wings, once capable of the most incredible aerial maneuvers, now feel impossibly heavy, hanging at your sides. The muscles that powered your legendary flight capabilities have finally reached their absolute limit, worn down by a lifetime of constant use. You can no longer maintain your grip on the branch, your tiny feet losing their hold as weakness spreads through your entire frame. There's no dramatic struggle, no final burst of energy. You simply close your eyes as your body's systems begin shutting down one by one. Your remarkable brain, which once stored detailed maps of thousands of flowers and navigated you across entire continents, gradually quiets as consciousness slowly fades away. Within hours of your passing, your tiny body will be discovered by other creatures. Perhaps a small predator will find you, or maybe you'll simply become part of the natural cycle as insects and decomposers begin their work. Your physical form, which once defied gravity with such grace and precision, returns to the earth from which it came. But your death is not the end of your story. Throughout your life, you served as a vital link in an intricate web of ecological relationships that extends far beyond your individual existence. Every flower you visited, every drop of nectar you consumed, every grain of pollen you carried from bloom to bloom contributed to the continuation of countless plant species. Your role as a pollinator ensured that fruits would develop, seeds would form, and entire ecosystems would continue to flourish. The territorial battles you fought weren't just about your own survival, they were part of a complex system that maintains the delicate balance of your ecosystem. By defending your feeding grounds, you helped ensure that flower resources were distributed efficiently among your species, preventing any single area from being overexploited. Your aggressive defense of prime territories meant that only the strongest and most capable hummingbirds would claim the best resources, maintaining the genetic health of your population. Your migration, that incredible journey that seemed impossible for such a small creature, was part of a much larger pattern that has persisted for millions of years. Your ancestors made the same treacherous crossings, following ancient routes that connect distant ecosystems. Your successful completion of this journey, even once, contributed to the genetic legacy that enables future generations to continue this remarkable feat. The knowledge you gained throughout your life, the ability to remember thousands of individual flowers, their locations, and their blooming schedules, dies with you. But this information was never meant to be permanent. Each new generation of hummingbirds must learn these lessons anew, adapting to changing conditions, discovering new food sources, and developing their own mental maps of the world around them. Your species will continue long after you're gone. Somewhere, other hummingbirds are hatching from eggs no bigger than jelly beans, beginning their own incredible journeys. They'll face the same challenges you did, the same predators, the same territorial disputes, the same impossible migrations. Some will succeed, others will fail, but the cycle will continue as it has for millions of years. The flowers you pollinated will bloom again next season, their genetic diversity enhanced by your visits. The fruits that developed from your pollination efforts will feed countless other creatures, from insects to mammals, each playing their own role in the vast network of life. The seeds dispersed by the animals that ate those fruits will grow into new plants, creating new habitats and new opportunities for future generations of hummingbirds. Your brief existence, lasting perhaps only a few years, was part of a story that spans geological time. Your species has survived ice ages, climate changes, and countless environmental challenges. They've adapted to new flowers, new territories, and new threats. Your individual contribution to this ongoing saga may seem small, but it's part of an unbroken chain of survival that stretches back millions of years. The ecosystem you inhabited will adjust to your absence. Other hummingbirds will gradually expand their territories to include the flowers you once defended. The delicate balance of competition and cooperation that characterizes your species will reorganize itself, creating new opportunities for some while presenting new challenges for others. This constant flux, this endless dance of survival and adaptation, is what has allowed your species to thrive in environments from tropical rainforests to high mountain meadows. Your death also represents the end of a unique individual. No other hummingbird will ever fly exactly the same routes you did, visit exactly the same flowers, or face exactly the same challenges. Your particular combination of instincts, learned behaviors, and adaptations was entirely your own. The specific territorial boundaries you established, the particular flowers you favored, the exact timing of your migrations. All of these details were unique to your individual experience. Yet, in another sense, your death is just one moment in an ongoing cycle that has no real beginning or end. Your parents faced the same ultimate fate, as did their parents before them. Your offspring, if you were successful in reproducing, will eventually face the same inevitable conclusion to their own remarkable lives. This cycle of birth, struggle, reproduction, and death is what drives the evolutionary process that has created such incredible diversity in the hummingbird family. The challenges your species faces continue to evolve. Climate change is shifting the timing of flower blooms, potentially disrupting the precisely coordinated relationship between hummingbirds and their food sources. Habitat destruction threatens the stopover sites that are crucial for long-distance migrants. New predators and diseases present novel threats that require adaptive responses. Yet your species has shown remarkable resilience throughout its evolutionary history, and there's reason to believe they'll continue to adapt to whatever challenges the future holds. Your individual death is simultaneously insignificant and profound. Insignificant because millions of hummingbirds have died before you, and millions more will die after you. The loss of any single individual has little impact on the overall population or the ecosystem as a whole. But your death is also profound because it represents the end of a unique life story, a singular journey through a world full of wonder, danger, and beauty. The territory you once defended so fiercely will be claimed by others. The flowers you visited will attract new pollinators. The nest you built, if you were successful in reproducing, will eventually crumble and return to the elements. The intricate knowledge you accumulated about your environment will be lost forever. Yet the impact of your existence will ripple forward through time in ways both subtle and significant. This is the final chapter of your story as a hummingbird. From your vulnerable beginning as a helpless hatchling to your final moments as an experienced adult, you've lived a life of incredible intensity and purpose. You've demonstrated that size is no barrier to achieving the extraordinary. You've shown that with the right adaptations, even the smallest creatures can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Your legacy isn't measured in years, but in the countless moments of perfect flight, the thousands of flowers pollinated, the successful migrations completed, and the genetic material passed on to future generations. You've played your part in one of nature's most remarkable success stories, and in doing so, you've contributed to the ongoing miracle of life itself. As the sun sets on your final day, the world continues its eternal cycle. Tomorrow, other hummingbirds will wake to face their own challenges, their own adventures, their own brief but brilliant journeys through this extraordinary existence. The story of your species continues, written in the language of beating wings, territorial calls, and the eternal dance between flower and pollinator that has sustained both for millions of years. As your journey through life as a hummingbird reaches its twilight, you find yourself reflecting on the extraordinary path that has brought you to this moment. The seasons have cycled countless times since you first broke free from that tiny shell, no larger than a coffee bean, weighing less than a dime. That helpless, naked creature that once depended entirely on your mother's constant care has become a master of the skies, a living testament to the incredible power of evolution and adaptation. Your body, though now showing the wear of countless flights and battles, remains a marvel of biological engineering. Every cell, every muscle fiber, every delicate bone has been shaped by millions of years of natural selection to create one of nature's most remarkable survival machines. Your heart, beating up to 1,200 times per minute at rest and even faster during flight, has pumped blood through your system billions of times, delivering the oxygen and nutrients needed to fuel your high-speed existence. Your specialized flight muscles, making up nearly a quarter of your body weight, have powered you through distances that would humble much larger creatures. The memories of your life flash through your consciousness like frames in a high-speed film. You remember the terror of those first flights, when every movement felt uncertain and the ground seemed to rush up to meet you. You recall the moment when flight became second nature, when you could hover motionless in front of a flower, fly backwards with perfect precision, or execute barrel rolls that would challenge the most skilled aerobatic pilot. The mastery you achieved over your own body was nothing short of extraordinary, allowing you to navigate through dense forests, dodge predators, and compete with rivals in aerial battles that showcased the very limits of vertebrate flight capability. Your feeding experiences have been equally remarkable. You have visited thousands upon thousands of flowers, your long, specialized tongue darting in and out of corollas to extract the precious nectar that fueled your existence. You learned to read the subtle signs that indicated which flowers were worth investigating and which were already depleted. You memorized the locations of the most productive feeding sites, creating mental maps that guided your daily foraging routes. Your relationship with flowers became a dance of mutual benefit, where your need for energy aligned perfectly with the plant's need for pollination, creating one of nature's most elegant partnerships. The territorial battles you fought were fierce expressions of your survival instinct. You defended prime feeding locations with a ferocity that belied your tiny size, engaging in high-speed chases and aerial confrontations that required split-second timing and incredible agility. These conflicts taught you about dominance hierarchies, resource management, and the delicate balance between aggression and energy conservation. You learned when to fight and when to retreat, when to stand your ground, and when to seek alternative feeding sites. These social dynamics shaped not only your individual survival, but also influenced the broader ecological patterns within your habitat. Perhaps most impressively, you mastered the art of migration, undertaking journeys that pushed your small body to its absolute limits. The preparation for these epic flights required precise timing and physiological changes that transformed your body composition. You doubled your weight by storing fat reserves, your flight muscles became more efficient, and your entire metabolism shifted to support the incredible demands of non-stop flight across vast distances. The navigation skills you developed were nothing short of miraculous, allowing you to find your way across thousands of miles using a combination of magnetic fields, celestial cues, and landscape features that you somehow processed and integrated into a coherent directional sense. Your survival through multiple seasons demonstrated your remarkable adaptability. You weathered storms that could have easily destroyed you, found shelter during harsh weather, and adjusted your behavior to match the changing availability of food sources. You learned to exploit different types of feeders, to time your activities to avoid peak predator hours, and to recognize the subtle environmental cues that signaled approaching changes in weather or food availability. This behavioral flexibility, combined with your physical adaptations, allowed you to thrive in environments that would challenge much larger and seemingly more robust creatures. The predator encounters you survived were testament to your incredible reflexes and situational awareness. Hawks, cats, spiders, and countless other threats posed constant dangers, yet you developed an almost supernatural ability to detect and evade these risks. Your eyes, capable of processing visual information at speeds that made the world appear to move in slow motion, gave you the split-second advantage needed to escape from situations that would have been fatal to less adapted creatures. You learned to read the body language of potential threats, to recognize the hunting patterns of different predators, and to use your superior maneuverability to turn the tables on attackers. Your interactions with other hummingbirds revealed the complex social dynamics of your species. While often competitive, these relationships also provided opportunities for learning and adaptation. You observed the techniques of more experienced birds, learned from their successes and failures, and gradually developed your own unique approaches to the challenges of survival. The courtship rituals you participated in, whether as a performer or observer, connected you to the ancient patterns of reproduction that ensure the continuation of your species. These elaborate displays, requiring perfect timing and coordination, demonstrated the aesthetic dimension of survival, where beauty and function merged in spectacular aerial performances. The seasonal changes you experienced throughout your life created a rhythm that governed your existence. Spring brought the renewal of territories and the explosion of flower blooms that provided abundant feeding opportunities. Summer intensified the competition for resources while offering the longest days for foraging. Autumn triggered the physiological changes necessary for migration and tested your ability to build the energy reserves needed for the journey ahead. Winter, whether spent in dormancy or in distant tropical locations, required different survival strategies and presented unique challenges that shaped your adaptability. Your energy management skills became increasingly sophisticated over time. You learned to balance the immediate needs of survival with the long-term requirements of reproduction and migration. You developed an intuitive understanding of energy economics, knowing precisely how much effort to expend on different activities and when to conserve resources for future needs. This metabolic mastery allowed you to maintain the incredibly high energy throughput required for your lifestyle while avoiding the catastrophic energy deficits that could lead to death. The environmental challenges you faced were diverse and ever-changing. Climate variations, habitat modifications, and seasonal fluctuations in food availability required constant adaptation and behavioral flexibility. You learned to exploit temporary food sources, to adjust your territorial boundaries based on resource availability, and to time your activities to maximize efficiency while minimizing risk. Your ability to read and respond to environmental cues became increasingly refined, allowing you to anticipate changes and prepare accordingly. Your sensory capabilities provided you with a rich and detailed perception of the world around you. Your vision, extending into the ultraviolet spectrum, revealed patterns and markings on flowers that were invisible to other creatures. Your hearing allowed you to detect the approach of predators and the calls of other hummingbirds from remarkable distances. Your spatial awareness, essential for high-speed flight in complex environments, gave you an almost three-dimensional understanding of your surroundings that enabled split-second navigation decisions. The flowers you visited throughout your lifetime numbered in the hundreds of thousands, each interaction contributing to the broader ecological web that sustains both plant and animal communities. Your role as a pollinator connected you to the reproductive cycles of countless plant species, making you an essential component of ecosystem function. The pollen you carried from flower to flower enabled the production of seeds that would grow into new plants, ensuring the continuation of the very resources that sustained your existence. Your nesting experiences, whether as a dependent chick or as a parent yourself, connected you to the fundamental drive for reproduction that underlies all life. The construction of nests, the incubation of eggs, and the feeding of young required specialized knowledge and behaviors that were both instinctive and learned. These experiences demonstrated the remarkable investment that your species makes in ensuring the survival of the next generation, with parents dedicating enormous amounts of time and energy to the care of their offspring. The migration routes you followed were ancient pathways carved by countless generations of your ancestors. Each journey added to your understanding of these routes, building the experience and knowledge that would have been passed on to future generations. The stopover sites you utilized, the weather patterns you learned to read, and the navigation techniques you mastered were all part of a vast inherited wisdom that connected you to the deep evolutionary history of your species. Your territorial behaviors reflected the fundamental importance of resource control in survival. The feeding areas you defended, the hierarchies you established, and the conflicts you resolved all contributed to the efficient distribution of resources within your community. These social dynamics, while sometimes appearing aggressive or wasteful, actually represented sophisticated mechanisms for resource allocation that maximized the survival potential of the population as a whole. The predator-prey relationships you navigated were examples of the evolutionary arms race that drives natural selection. Your incredible speed, agility, and awareness were matched by the equally impressive hunting adaptations of your predators. This constant pressure shaped not only your individual survival strategies, but also influenced the broader evolutionary trajectory of your species, selecting for ever greater refinements in escape behaviors and defensive capabilities. Your physiological adaptations represented the culmination of millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Your rapid heart rate, efficient respiratory system, and specialized digestive tract were all perfectly tuned to support your high-energy lifestyle. Your ability to enter torpor during periods of food scarcity or extreme weather demonstrated the remarkable physiological flexibility that enabled survival in challenging conditions. The flowers you co-evolved with shaped not only your feeding behavior, but also your physical characteristics. Your bill length, tongue structure, and feeding techniques were all influenced by the specific flowers available in your habitat. This co-evolutionary relationship created a tight interdependence between you and your plant partners, with each species influencing the evolutionary development of the other. Your communication abilities, though sometimes overlooked, played important roles in your survival and reproduction. The calls you made, the visual displays you performed, and the territorial signals you broadcast all contributed to the complex social fabric of your community. These communication systems enabled cooperation, reduced unnecessary conflicts, and facilitated the reproductive processes that ensured species continuation. The seasonal timing of your activities demonstrated your ability to synchronize your behavior with environmental cycles. Your breeding timing, migration schedules, and feeding patterns all aligned with the availability of resources and the requirements of survival. This temporal coordination was essential for maximizing reproductive success and minimizing exposure to unfavorable conditions. Your learning abilities, though operating within the constraints of your small brain, were nonetheless remarkable. You memorized the locations of productive feeding sites, learned to recognize and avoid dangerous situations, and developed increasingly sophisticated foraging strategies. This behavioral flexibility allowed you to adapt to changing conditions and exploit new opportunities as they arose. The energy you expended throughout your lifetime was enormous relative to your body size. Your metabolic rate, among the highest of any vertebrate, required constant fuel input and incredibly efficient energy processing. The balance between energy intake and expenditure that you maintained was a constant challenge that shaped every aspect of your behavior and physiology. Your flight capabilities represented one of the most remarkable achievements in vertebrate evolution. Your ability to hover, fly backwards, and execute complex maneuvers with precision and speed was unmatched in the animal kingdom. These skills were not merely impressive displays, but essential survival tools that enabled you to access food sources, escape predators, and navigate through complex environments. The habitat requirements you needed were specific and demanding. The combination of food sources, nesting sites, and shelter that supported your existence required careful conservation and management. Your sensitivity to environmental changes made you an important indicator species, with your presence or absence reflecting the health of the broader ecosystem. Your reproductive contributions, whether as a parent or through your pollination activities, ensured the continuation of both your species and the plant communities you served. The energy you invested in reproduction, the risks you took to ensure offspring survival, and the genetic legacy you passed on all contributed to the ongoing evolutionary story of your lineage. Now, as your remarkable journey draws to a close, you can rest knowing that your life has been a testament to the incredible power of adaptation, perseverance, and evolutionary refinement. You have lived every moment at full intensity, burning brightly like a tiny star in the vast cosmos of life. Your existence, though brief by human standards, has been rich with experience, challenge, and achievement. The legacy you leave behind extends far beyond your individual survival. The flowers you pollinated will produce seeds that will grow into new plants, supporting future generations of hummingbirds and other wildlife. The territorial boundaries you established and defended will be inherited by other members of your species, contributing to the ongoing organization of your community. The survival techniques you perfected and the knowledge you gained will be passed on through the collective wisdom of your species. Your story is ultimately one of triumph over seemingly impossible odds. Born as one of the smallest warm-blooded creatures on Earth, you faced challenges that would overwhelm animals many times your size. Yet through the remarkable adaptations gifted to you by evolution and your own determination to survive, you not only persevered but thrived. You mastered the art of flight, conquered vast distances, defended your territory, and contributed to the continuation of your species. As you take your final rest, you can do so with the knowledge that you have lived a life of extraordinary purpose and achievement. You have been a living embodiment of nature's creativity, a testament to the power of evolution, and a vital participant in the endless dance of life that connects all living things. Your tiny heart, which beat so rapidly for so long, can finally slow, knowing that it has carried you through one of nature's most remarkable journeys. As your final season approaches, the weight of countless miles traveled and battles fought becomes evident in every wing beat. Your once pristine feathers now show the wear of thousands of territorial disputes, storm-battered migrations, and narrow escapes from predators. The ruby throat that once blazed like fire in the sunlight has dulled slightly, though it still catches the light with dignity. Your reflexes, while still remarkable by any standard, have lost that split-second precision that once made you virtually untouchable in aerial combat. The young hummingbirds that now challenge your territory move with the same fearless aggression you once possessed. They dart and weave with fresh energy, their movements sharp and decisive. You find yourself choosing your battles more carefully, relying on experience rather than raw speed. Sometimes, you simply retreat to a quieter corner of your domain, conserving energy for the essential tasks of survival. This isn't surrender, but wisdom earned through seasons of living at the edge of possibility. Your body, a marvel of biological engineering, continues to function with impressive efficiency, even as it begins to show signs of age. Your heart, which has beaten over 4 billion times throughout your life, still pumps at an extraordinary rate, though perhaps not with quite the same explosive power. So the muscles that have powered your wings through millions of figure-8 patterns retain their strength, but recovery between intense flights takes a little longer. Your metabolism, while still blazing at an incredible rate, requires more careful management of energy reserves. The migration routes you've traveled multiple times now feel different. The landmarks remain the same. The magnetic fields you navigate by are constant, but your approach has changed. You've learned to read weather patterns with the expertise of a seasoned traveler, knowing exactly when to push forward and when to seek shelter. The Gulf of Mexico, once a terrifying expanse of endless blue, has become a familiar challenge, conquered through accumulated knowledge of wind patterns, feeding stops, and the subtle signs that indicate safe passage. Your contribution to the ecosystem has been immeasurable. Over your lifetime, you've visited hundreds of thousands of flowers, transferring pollen between plants with the precision of a skilled craftsman. Entire populations of wildflowers have depended on your daily rounds, their genetic diversity enhanced by your tireless work. The insects you've consumed have helped maintain the delicate balance of countless microecosystems. Your presence has influenced the behavior of other species, from the flowers that evolved to match your preferences to the spiders that learned to time their web building around your territorial patrols. The social dynamics of your species have been shaped by countless interactions like yours. Every territorial dispute, every mating display, every moment of cooperation or conflict has contributed to the complex behavioral patterns that define hummingbird society. Your genes, passed on through offspring, carry forward the successful traits that allowed you to thrive in an unforgiving world. The memory of your feeding routes, encoded in your neural pathways, represents a form of knowledge that has influenced the survival strategies of your descendants. As winter approaches, what may be your final year, you feel the familiar urge to migrate. Though the journey ahead seems more daunting than ever before, your body has made this incredible voyage before, but age brings new challenges. The decision to undertake this epic journey or to remain in familiar territory becomes a critical choice that will determine how your story ends. Some hummingbirds choose to face the uncertainty of migration. Driven by instincts too powerful to ignore, others find refuge in unexpected places, adapting to changing conditions with the same resourcefulness that had defined their entire existence. The world you've known throughout your life continues to change around you. New flowers bloom, new threats emerge, and new opportunities present themselves. Climate patterns shift, altering the timing of migrations and the availability of resources. Human-made changes to the landscape create both challenges and unexpected benefits. Through it all, your species demonstrates the same remarkable adaptability that has allowed hummingbirds to thrive for millions of years. Your final days, whenever they come, will be marked by the same intensity that has characterized your entire existence. Even as your body slows, your spirit remains undiminished. You continue to defend your territory, seek out the sweetest nectar, and maintain the precise routines that have sustained you. There's no gradual decline into helplessness, no slow fade from vitality. Instead, you remain essentially yourself until the very end, a tiny embodiment of fierce determination and evolutionary perfection. The life of a hummingbird is a testament to nature's ability to create something extraordinary from the most challenging constraints. Your existence has been defined by extremes, living at the absolute limits of what's physically possible for a warm-blooded creature. Every aspect of your anatomy, from your specialized flight muscles to your elongated beak, represents millions of years of refinement. Your behavior, from your aggressive territoriality to your incredible navigational abilities, showcases the complex intelligence that can emerge from even the smallest brain. In the end, your story is one of triumph over seemingly impossible odds. Born as a creature barely larger than a bee, you've conquered vast distances, survived countless predators, and mastered the art of flight in ways that inspire human engineers. Your life has been brief but brilliant, intense but meaningful. You've lived more fully in your few years than many creatures do in decades, experiencing the world with an intensity that few can match. Your legacy extends far beyond your individual existence, woven into the fabric of the ecosystems you've touched and the genetic heritage you've passed on. The flowers that bloom along your migration routes, the competitors you've challenged, and the offspring you've raised all carry forward the influence of your remarkable life. In choosing to live as a hummingbird, you've embraced a existence of pure intensity, proving that size means nothing when measured against the force of evolutionary perfection and indomitable will. Here you can find the next incredible sleeping story. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.